In this video I'm going to show you how you can record samples and cross-references within your asbestos survey. So first of all, let's start with samples, and this is to reflect the situation where you've taken a physical sample from somewhere within the room. Now you can see I've got some data here already. I'm going to start by adding an item to this store location using the Add Item Here shortcut. And all that's done is it's just pre-filled these top fields. Now because we're looking at an item, I'm going to select item from this selection here, and then we need to describe the item we're looking at. In this case, I'm going to use adhesive to flooring. And for the material, I'm just going to pop that in as bitumen. Now most people, when they're taking samples, would take two photographs, one further away for context, and then one close up. And you can also choose to put your own arrows and things like that on the photographs just to indicate exactly where you took the sample from. So I'm going to take two photographs, like I say, one far away from context and one close up. Now we need to tell the system that we suspect asbestos, so we check this checkbox here. And because we're taking a sample, we'll select sample from the drop down. Now you need to put in the sample ID and sample type. The sample ID is just your own reference for the sample. This is what you're going to be writing on the sample bag. The sample type describes how you took the sample, and that's in line with the HSG 248 standard. So let's start by putting in the sample ID. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to put in 001. For the sample type, I'm going to use this drop down just to give me some clues. And in this case, we're going to say we did a scraping sample. Next thing to do is to score up the asbestos here. So I'm just going to put in some scoring, and then we can fill out the rest of this information if we want to. So I'm going to click Save, and the sample's now been successfully recorded. Now let's look at recording a cross-reference. So this is to reflect the situation where you've already taken a sample of the same material, perhaps in a different room or different location, and you're confident that this material you've just found is the same, and you just want to cross-reference that original sample that you took. So in this situation, what you'll probably want to do is search for the original sample, and bear in mind this inspection list may be very long, so we'll use the search feature for that. Then you'll make a copy of the sample and change the strategy to cross-reference instead of sample. Let's show you how that's done. So first of all, as I say, we're going to search for the original sample. Now, this list is actually very small, but let's imagine it's quite big, and maybe the sample that we took is somewhere hidden away. So I'm going to search for the sample reference 001, and you can see it's picked up that sample that we just recorded quite quickly, and we can then use the swipe right to copy feature to make a copy. Now in this case we want to copy everything, so I'm going to use select all fields, but it's in a different location because it's not in that same store location. I'm going to change the strategy as well. You'll notice that the pictures aren't copied by default, the photographs, so we'll need to take new photographs as well. Then I press continue. That's going to pull that information from that original sample through onto this cross-reference that we're about to do. Now the first thing we want to do is pop it into the correct location. I'm going to create a new location for this. I'm going to call it the living room. And then we scroll down. We probably want to take some new photographs for this as well. So I'll see if I've got any in the gallery. Yeah, we'll use this one here for context. And we'll use this one here, which is a close-up. Now, we do suspect asbestos. That's still the same as it was before. But the strategy now will be to take a cross-reference. Now, cross-reference will render on the report as strongly presume in line with the HSG 264 standard. I'll show you that in a second, but for now let's just pop it in as a cross-reference, and we'll give it some scoring. In fact, it's taken the scoring from the original, so we don't need to worry about that, and then we'll save the item. So now we have one sample and one cross-reference to that sample 001. Now I'm going to jump over to the report and show you exactly what happens there. Here I've previewed the asbestos survey report, and you can see we have this error that says sample 001 is awaiting results. So we default to 𝘃𝗂𝗽𝗀𝗍𝗍 to give it that high material score, just in case you accidentally issue the report at this point to your client. Once you add your sample results, that will get rescored. Now I want to just show you some of the items within the asbestos register. Now I just want to show you this asbestos register so you can see how the samples and cross-references get rendered on the report. So the sample's pretty obvious. That's the second row down, this one here. And you can see the strategy is sample and the sample ID is that 001, the reference that we gave this sample. The cross-reference is a little bit different. Cross-reference isn't a term that gets used in the HSG 264 standard, so we render the cross-references as strongly presumes. So if you look at this last row here, this is that cross-reference that we took, except instead of cross-reference it says strongly presume as the strategy. Now I'll show you the effect that adding the sample results has on this report. So let's head back over to the dashboard. I'm going to open up the sample results section, and then I'm going to add a new sample result for 001. Let's assume that it's come back from the lab, and I'm going to put in 𝘃𝗂𝗽𝗲𝗍𝗃, which has a low material score. Now head back over to the report. So you'll see that adding that sample result has updated two of the rows on this register, rows 2 and 5, which were the sample and the cross-reference respectively, and they've both been rescored from medium risk items to low risk items, as you can see from the material score column. This was previously orange and this one was previously orange as well. So we added one sample result in for 001, and that's updated both the sample and any cross-references to that sample as well. We didn't have to add that sample result in twice, it just happened automatically for us. So just to recap, looking at the mobile app again, the way you add samples and cross-references is using the strategy. Just here, so a sample where you're actually physically taking a sample from somewhere within a location, and a cross-reference where you are referencing a sample you've already taken, perhaps in a different location.